Hello, my name is Bill Haley, and this is for Haley 2024, The Movement's Government Reform Ideas. Now, this video is going to be on federal, state, and local. Now, if you don't understand what we're doing here, I am proposing a new constitution for the United States of America. And that same constitution will be for the state constitutions and actually create a local constitution. So, I am wanting to go more into the free enterprise, greater liberty, restrictions on the governmental control, a lot less monopolized government control, a lot more competitive governance. Now, I'm going to go through a quick overview, but this video is going to be strictly on federal, state, and local, how that's going to interact with the Constitution. So, if you don't understand understand this on the Constitution yet, I am proposing that we separate all government power with elected top leadership per sector. No one person is going to be over top of, let's say, the military and environmental control, insurance and food, education and prisons. All these things are going to have separate top elected leaders in the legislative branch, in the executive branch, and the judicial branch. Highly important to understand that. You got 5 in the charity system because we get rid of government welfare altogether. 5 in this foreign protection system, we separate those powers. 5 in the violent crime mitigation system, we go free enterprise and all this stuff, guys. Almost everything. Governmental accountability, significantly more than we currently have right now, and we can do that better in a free market system. We have representative oversight committees that really have the power to stop things going out of control. Here's the other 15. I'm not going to go over them all right now, but it's important to understand how we will be talking about that in the federal, state, and local aspect of it. And I'll touch base with you near as we go through it. So within each sector, at the federal level, at the state level, and the local level, every current government will have this full structure of 30 sectors. Then every sector will have roughly 12 different CRAs that people have to select. You select yours, so your guy down the street selects theirs. The lady 5 streets over, she selects theirs. Everybody selects theirs. And then they govern only their members. You vote only within your membership for your CRA leadership, and then your CRAs will send representation up to the sector board level, parent sector board level, and the like. Let's go on. And all these are full governmental systems, so they can actually govern you legislatively, executively, judicially. The sections of the Constitution would be citizenship, general laws, bylaws. This video is going to be federal, state, and local, so we'll be definitely touching on that, the video is going to be on that. We just did a video on original authority. We're going to do a supermajority where monopolized action has to be at a 70% on most items. Parent sector board and the sector boards, highly important to understand those aspects of the Constitution. We have videos on those. I already have those out there. Competitive regulatory agencies, that's 90% of this whole thing, and everything is built to support CRAs, competitive regulatory agencies, the competitive governance. So this whole Constitution is built on this. This is 90% of it all. Rating system is high quality information from a wide variety of perspectives, highly important, highly powerful. Taxation, dealing with having to CRA fees, paying for what we're paying for. How we collect the money. We have competitive governance, so they're collecting their own money. We'll get into that on that video, and it's in many of the overview videos as well. I touch on that quite a bit. How we deal with debt, that's part of the transition, and we'll have videos on that. Pockets of freedom, immigration and foreign policy. Look at those videos. I'll have separate videos. Everything's on my website, but I'll have videos out on that. I know I've already have some videos on that. States partial acceptance per sector. That's important. Okay, the separation of responsibilities and authorities into the 30 sectors. We just went over the 30 sectors, and I'm sure we will again. I think we'll touch base with it on this video here. Federal, state, and local. That's section 4. The federal government will have, these are clauses now. The federal government will have one CRA structure consisting of every American entity and sovereignty over the entire American land and water rights. So the federal, I'm just defining that. It's important in a constitution that you give good definitional clauses, and that is one of them. Every American state government will have one distinct CRA structure. When I say distinct, all state governments aren't together under one structure. They have their own structure called at the state level. Every American state government will have one distinct CRA structure consisting of its entities and sovereignty over its entire land and water rights. So it's important just to have definition. The Federal Parent Sector Board has authority over the creation and reconfigurations of American states and territories with a 70% state parent sector board vote from any affected state. So a state really has to give an agreement to do this, and at a 70% rate at that. So the Federal Parent Sector Board has the authority to create and reconfigure, but if it affects a state, they have to give agreement to it. The creation of a new state from a pocket of freedom requires a 70% DFP, that is the diplomats, votes, and the approval of 70% of the state parent sector board's top executive leaders. So these are very definitional. We don't want things to happen very easily, so we put a lot of 70% and a wide range of different groups to do that. Representative people with representative power. Now, if all those words didn't make sense to you, I totally understand. If this was one of your first videos, you really have to understand the whole system. It's on my website, and you'll be able to see it once you look at the full website and understand the structure. This video is not for that necessarily. I want to give you that full explanation. I tried to do a quick overview, but it's just not going to be enough with such a radical change of the foundations of government. Okay, all American territories collectively become one state. So Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and the like, they all become one state. And each territory becomes at least one locality per territory in the new state. It's one idea. That doesn't have to be exactly that way. Obviously, Puerto Rico has many, many millions of people. It can become probably a state on its own, and the other ones could be one. But I want to give a start to creating statehood for some of the territories. And just because they're a territory does not give them the power over other states. Like, we don't want to give Puerto Rico statehood right now because they'll have two obviously Democrat voting senators, because they're going to be heavily Democrat, predominantly Democrat voters over there in Puerto Rico. So I shouldn't say we. Conservatives don't want them to be. Democrats do, because they'll get 2 more senators on their side of the aisle. This Constitution, this Haley 2024, is nonpartisan. I'm just saying there are reasons why Puerto Rico is being either encouraged or discouraged from becoming a state based off political concerns. Those political concerns are going to go away to a large degree with this new CRA structure, because they will not have federal power to control so much, because the federal government will not have that much power. Again, it's a separate issue a little bit, but we're going down a rabbit hole. Okay, we did that one. Every American local government will have one distinct CRA structure consisting of its entities and sovereignty over its entire land and water rights. A local government may not have over 15% of the state's population. So I want to create a system here where, and when I say entities, I mean citizens, but I also mean businesses. If and businesses can have some voting rights as well, because they are actually people are actually doing business with them, and they're doing services for people where people are giving them money, and they are a big important part of society. They're going to be paying taxes, payroll taxes and the like. They're going to be hiring law enforcement contracts, so they need to have representation as well. And we'll go over that in more detail in other videos. And I need to actually find a video to put that into, actually, now thinking about it. Anyway, a local government may, well, actually, I know exact video I want to put that into. That's going to be a long video. Okay, a local government may not have over 15% of the state's population. I just don't want something like New York City or Houston or LA to have such a dominant view, dominant over their whole state. And such a high percentage of it that they control the rest of the state with the population of their city. So I just want to limit how much a city can have. A city should not be that large. A city is small in the CRA structure. I really want it to be under a couple 100,000 people, to be honest with you, not millions. Millions should be state level. Millions of people. Locality should be lower, because actually locality I want to start actually giving power down to the hundreds of homes, homeowners association, business associations, some powers, not all powers, but in the land and water sector, it's important to give individualized areas more autonomy over their lives. Now, that's not going to be over everything. That would be several sectors or whatever. I'm going down a rabbit hole here. But local government, I want to actually break down even smaller. A local government being a couple 100,000, but I want them to be 3,000, 5,000 groupings as well. At least the ability to give certain authorities, not all of it, but certain authorities down there in many of the sectors. The State Parent Sector Board has authority over the creation and reconfiguration of local governments. So they kind of have that now to a large degree. State governments have control over their local governments. But it's nice to put it into a constitution. It's pretty much necessary to really spell things out in a constitution. It's not just leave it up to the assumptions or the history of the governments, but to put it in there. The local government with a higher population than the least populated state may become a distinct American state with a 50% local parent sector board vote. The respective state or the federal parent sector boards may not block this action. So this cannot be blocked if it's locality, LA, Dallas, Houston, New York City, Miami. Some of these states have many, many more people than the population of Alaska, New Hampshire, North Dakota, South Dakota. I appreciate that, but become a state and then have localities within that state and break it down further, because we should have a correct balance on governance over millions versus governance over hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands. The Federal Sector 6 Sector Board must set up a system of obligations that allow states and localities to claim water rights in the open ocean. We are to the point in our civilization and world history that we're going to start populating the oceans. I predict this is 2021, I'm doing this video, within 10 years, I think we're going to have millions of people out there on the open ocean, platforms that are going to be pretty stable. They're not going to be rocking around, and they're going to have different governance on them. So I want our states, our localities, the federal government, pockets of freedom are going to be part of this. We're going to put big platforms out there in the open ocean floating, and have civilization on there. Many, many square miles, tens, if not hundreds of square miles of farmland and grazing land, cattle, and the whole 9 yards. There's no reason why we can't have thousands, if not tens of thousands, of cattle out there in the open ocean on floating platforms where they have plenty of food to eat, a better life, more humane life. There's a lot to get into. I really want to get into populating the open ocean and competitive governance out there. Federal level CRA sector boards. So let's define that real quick. Federal level, then CRA sector boards. So that's the middle range sector boards monopolize governance. May not fund state or local level sector boards. They're not going to really have the authority to anyway, but because I'm so much against the federal government funding state governments and state governments funding local governments, everybody should collect the taxes at the level that they're at and spend the money at the level they're at. What you're doing when you have the federal government spend money, give money to the state government, they're buying their authority. They're buying their rights. They're buying their sovereignty. And they're taxing their citizens. So just tax what you're going to do at the level you're going to do it at, and then spend the money at that point, at that level. If you want it at the state level, don't raise the money at the federal level, and then give it to the state level. Have the state level collect the money. You're going to say, well, they don't have the money. Well, they're getting the money from the citizens of that city and all the other cities and all the other states. It's a restriction that if any CRA level sector board ever is interpreted to have such power, this will stop it. This should not be even an issue. It's just that I don't like what they're currently doing, and I want to make sure that a sector board does not think it doesn't have much authority at all. It barely has authority to do anything. The CRAs have to collect the money. We just want to put restrictions and say, you can't do it this way, not at the sector board level. If a CRA wants to do it, it's something to join, and if you don't like what they're doing, you can join another CRA. But at the sector board level, no. And again, that's just a restriction based off of our current constitution and what we're currently doing wrong. The structure I created not to do that in the first place. Not even to give them authority. But just like the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, it's not necessary because the Constitution never gave the federal government authority, the general grant of power, of governing power. They never gave them the authority to regulate speech or restrict associations or restrict religion. They were never given the power to do it. So why should we have the First Amendment saying the federal government can't do it? When you say the federal government cannot do it, it assumes that the federal government has the general grant of power. Okay, every American citizen owns an equal percentage of the federal government. Okay, this is from Section 1, but because it's really relevant, I put it into the federal, state, and local. So every American citizen owns an equal percentage of the federal government. Every citizen of a state owns an equal percentage of the state government, and every citizen of a local government owns an equal percentage of the local government. But then I restrict it right here real quick, or I define it. Ownership of a government conveys an equal representation of the government's elected leaders. Ownership of a government may not be bought or sold and does not convey ownership or property or wealth. Ownership in a government means you have equal representation. You are part owner of the full government. That does not mean you have ownership of property, ownership of wealth, or ownership of anything. It's ownership of the government, and that's equal representation. It's a very clear definition. I don't want anybody to read this and say, well, I have equal ownership of the government, so I own 1/100,000th of the city of whatever that has 100,000 people in it, and I get that wealth. No, that does not mean that. Ownership of a government requires a positive obligation and has inherent benefits. So that's important to understand that when you sign the CRA social contract, and we have that, it's in another section of the Constitution. It requires positive obligations, that you fight foreign foes, that you create a rule of law, or you create CRA. You're part of a membership that creates the CRAs that create a rule of law, pays for the military to fight foreign foes, and the leadership and the command structure and the representative oversight and everything that we need to have government. You have to pay for, and it's positive obligation on the citizen to have it. But boy, is there inherent benefits in all that. Try not having that, and you'll see that a country just does not go well when you don't have that. You don't have the inherent benefits of a well-established government. Now, well-established government, in my view, is competitive, and not what we currently have. Monopolized government is not does not give the best inherent benefits. Okay, this whole video is on federal, state, and local, and I'm gonna try to go through real rapidly the 30 sectors. I'm already at 21 minutes, so I'll probably go about 27, 28, 29, maybe 30 minutes here. Okay, charities. You'll see here that this is one of the clauses in the charity section. The CDA, Charitable Distribution Association, minimum compulsory contributions are distributed to the federal CDA at a 20% rate, the state CDA at a 40% rate, and the local CDA at a 40% rate. So 40% local, 40% state, 20% federal. So the charities are just the charities. They help. They assist the poor. They create the charity economy. The Charitable Distribution Association, that's highly important. They receive the tax. They receive the compulsory mandatory contributions. You have to give 5% of GDP. And so everybody has to give a percentage of their income. Businesses have to give a percentage of their income to the CDAs. And then the CDAs fund the charities. It's a system where there's checks and balances. The CDAs are responsible for examining all the different charities, looking deeply within the charities to see which ones are doing the best job, and then funding those charities. Then the caseworkers, charitable assessor organizations, AOs. These are going to be some of the most wise among us. They're going to look at each individual family, put a caseworker with them, and say, how can we get you to where you need to be an independent citizen of the United States without having to be reliant on others. Now, there are going to be some people who are long-term reliant on others. Somebody with Down syndrome, somebody with some mental disabilities, maybe some physical disabilities. They're going to be more long-term in need. And the charity system is going to help take care of them. Now, but on the most part, most people can and are willing to work to get the benefits that they want. So even if you fall on hard times, you still want to work to get what the charities are giving you. And the charity economy is going to be great at that, and the AOs, caseworkers, are going to help facilitate that. So that's a highly important aspect of that. Then family law, that's probably going to be mostly local, some state. However, they want to split it up in that sector. Then religion, you don't regulate religion. That's there to fight for religious freedom. That's not to suppress the religion in any way, shape, or form. Okay, foreign protection system. These are at the federal level. Now, they might want to give some at the state level, some at the local level. I think 20% of military funding has to be done at the state level. So every state has some military spending in it, and they can have protection for their state. You don't want to leave any state without anything. So 20% of all the military funding has to go to the states, originally to the state. So it's distributed within the state. And that all works within one big system of the military. But again, I'm not going to go through every one of these right now. You'll get more of each, the flavor of each one of these will be when I go over this in a separate video. The violent crime mitigation system, it's hard to say which one they're going to be at. Most likely 5 to 10% at the federal level, most likely about 40% at the state level, 40% at the local level on most of these. Law enforcement, we have most of the law enforcement is local level anyway, so we're going to keep that. The breakdown between state, local, and federal are going to start getting mixed when we go free enterprise law enforcement. They're going to work together, work seamlessly with each other through these law enforcement companies, private law enforcement companies that will have a badge for the federal, badge for the local, badge for the state. And some people having all three badges together. So there's a lot to it, and I'm not going to get into it on this video. And to a large degree, I'm creating the structure. I'm creating it's structural in nature, where every sector is going to deal with, hey, how much should we give to the federal? How much should we give to the local? Obviously, the 5 in the federal, they're going to make the determination how much to the state and local. But the other 25 will be at the state level. How much will we give to the local? How much do we give to the federal? So healthcare, I don't know exactly how that's going to break down. Again, structural in nature. They might send up 20-30% to the federal. I don't know. But every state, because CRAs can work across state lines, and you're allowed to do business with anybody within any state. Just because you're in Wyoming now, you can do business with somebody in California. There's no restrictions on that. So there's going to be plenty of CRAs out there, plenty of private sector companies doing a business model and making it better and getting good ratings. And you can do business across state lines, no problem there. So the distinction between federal, state, and local might blur a lot within some of these sectors. But they're still going to have the authorities. But just the nature of CRAs are going to allow you to work seamlessly between federal, local, and state. Okay, I'm not going to go into all these. It's on all these. I'll get into more specifics when I go through the sectors. But the human resources and sales are going to have to, at the state level, collect money to fund the federal level military. And that's all set up. It's all within the Constitution. That's within some of the clauses within that sector. Environmental, some of that will have to be federalized. But you want to keep a lot at the state level and a lot at the local level because, hey, rivers travel from one locality to another one really rapidly. Same thing with states. And water pollution is going to affect going across state lines very rapidly and across jurisdictions, especially local jurisdictions, rapidly. But there are some things that stay local, and you want to keep those more local. And some of those environmental, they're going to be really using rating floors as a primary mode of keeping things standards up and pollution low. Land and water is going to be a lot of local stuff there, but we'll see. Each one of those are going to be different. So anyway, about 30-minute video here, and I just wanted to talk about federal, state, and local, how we use the same Constitution for all three levels. However, you're either designated a federal, which is only one structure, a state, which is going to be 50, maybe 52, 53, 54, whatever ends up being. We can add a lot of states actually because Some of the cities are large enough to be states, and then or you could be designated local. And local, I want it anywhere between 10,000 to maybe 2 or 300,000. I don't want these huge multi-million people states. It creates too big of a problem. Local needs to be local for local reasons, and the CRA structure is made for that. The states need to be states for certain reasons and size for a certain reason. Anyway, please consider a donation to the Haley 2020 for the movement. It's easy to find on my website. And until the next video.